Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 47 with service to Juban, Tokyo. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time, secure your podcasting device, and remember, if you decide to eat on this airplane at a non-designated meal time or snack time, you will be kicked off the plane immediately, even mid-flight.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Jeff Purvis, joined by Max Singer and Rich Inman. How are you boys doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for some crime fighting.
Oh, I didn't know today's flight was going back to pandemic rules about eating.
I'm so excited for our first strike-friendly episode. This is awesome. It's a solidarity pod.
Yeah, well, boys, I'm really excited too, because this week we are diving into our first little bit of Japanese anime and talking about Sailor Moon. But before we do so, it appears that there is a masked man in a tuxedo vaguely holding a single rose and a jewelry store owner who seems to be selling jewelry at an extreme discount that can't be profitable. This week, our guests are a pair of comedians, actors, and writers that recently sold out LA's Elysian Theater and have another show at the Elysian on August 18th with tickets available now for sale. Please welcome Dan Duddy and Jasper Lewis. Welcome, Dan and Jasper.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Dan.
Ring your
all
call
here.
buttons. Ding, 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 ding,
Oh,
ding.
what an intro. I feel so fancy.
Am I the one running the jewelry store? Am I the one with the rose?
Yeah,
you're the mom.
you're Morga.
Okay, that's who I thought.
Well, Dan and Joss, thank you so much for joining us. You two actually brought Sailor Moon to us. So before we even get started, I'd love to hear what's the connection to this beloved property.
Well, I'll start. So for me, I think it's a little bit more. It's a little more simple. I had a huge crush on Sailor Moon, and I feel like I was sexually awakened in my youth. But when I came, when you guys asked me to come on, and I came to Jazz, to be on the podcast, I came to her specifically because I knew she was someone who loved a lot of weird television, and would know obscure pilots and the quirks and intricacies of said pilots. So Jazz, my person, when she said Sailor Moon, I was like, let's go.
We need you for our end of year roundup where we just pick 3 shows that absolutely flop and just do a show on those.
Oh my God, I would love that. I'm the perfect person for that. So let's circle back. My connection with Sailor Moon, I was actually telling Duddy this story. I don't know if you recall, I don't know how old you guys are, but back in the day, every big box retailer would have this section in the back of the store that was for crafts. And they would have these big tables with the McCall's pattern books on them. And the books, they'd be chained to the table, thick pages. You'd flip through them, find the thing you want to make, and then you'd pick out the pattern from the drawer underneath. And so I would just go back there and hang out while my mom did all of her shopping. And I found this pattern for Sailor Moon costumes. And I had never seen the anime aesthetic before. And so I saw the graphics and I was like, what the fuck is Sailor Moon? This is crazy. And then I went home and I think it was Netscape or whatever the browsers were back then. And I researched Sailor Moon on the early internet and I was obsessed. I was like, this is airing on TV right now.
Definitely dating ourselves right now.
Exactly.
Our browser.
You know what? We use sunscreen every day, though. You would never know.
You would never know.
You would never know.
Rich is only 18 years old, so he has no idea what we're talking about.
Wait, are you serious?
I'm a resident Gen Z. I'm a resident Gen Z person.
Listen, you look like you use sunscreen too.
That's a proper reaction.
You look like you have a whole beauty regimen. So I would believe it.
Thank you so much. I keep this camera at a very low resolution.
Oh, even better. You look like a baby. Okay, let's see.
It's getting younger and younger. You look like an ultrasound.
Yeah, you look like a zygote. Stop it.
Wow. Guys.
But yeah, so my connection to Sailor Moon goes way back. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Sailor Moon is a show that you learned about while researching on the family computer, like when like the computer had a room
Yes,
that it lived in, and you
exactly.
only wanted you all to share it.
All had
A
to
lot
share
of
it.
Sailor Moon themed Zanga pages.
Yes. Oh my God.
So, really excited to dive in a little bit deeper, but for folks who might have just found us randomly through an algorithm or maybe are looking for Dan and Jazz, Max, what is this podcast all about?
So here at TV Pilots License, we talk about the debut episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn about how these projects came to be, determine if they're effective shows and making us want to watch more, and if we think they could be made today. Go back, listen to all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. Go find favorites, things you may never have seen before if you're feeling a little bit bold and spicy. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard today.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
Oh boy. So watching this brought up a lot of memories of Saturday morning cartoons, anything on Nickelodeon that would be my jam. I wanted to know, what was your Saturday morning cartoon of choice? If you could go back right now and relive that memory, what are you picking?
Oh, what a tough question. Max, why don't you lead us off?
So my go-to as a kid, where they used to do a thing on Cartoon Network called Super Chunk on Saturday mornings, where it would be like 4 hours straight of just one cartoon. And I loved those. I would also like VCR record those Super Chunk blocks, and then I would have like bootleg tapes of these things to watch in perpetuity, like 4 hour blocks of Cow and Chicken bootlegs and like Two Stupid Dogs bootlegs. Those were my like Grateful Dead tapes that like Rich is so into. But yeah, Two Stupid Dogs in particular, a binge of that was my absolute jam in my youth.
For me, I had there was a block, and I forget what the name of the channel was, or like what, like, but once I say it, you guys or anyone listening that knows immediately what it would be. So it was Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, back to back, because I was really cool and very popular. And then Yu-Gi-Oh would sometimes switch off with like, there was one, I think my favorite of that, like that coupling, like Pokemon was always there. That was a staple from, the beginning of time, but they would always pair it with like the next big thing, Yu-Gi-Oh for a long time. And then there was a show called Shaolin Showdown. It had like 3 seasons.
Oh man, you just like got like a deep part of my brain.
I've
there,
never
man.
even heard of Challenge Showdown.
Oh my God, it was the best.
Yeah,
It was
wow.
this little like he was this little monk, and it was like Avatar, but like not Avatar. But they collected little trinkets. Anyway, Shaolin Showdown absolutely slapped. I think it only had like 3 seasons, but I enjoyed every bit of it.
For me, I would have to say that it would be the Saturday morning version of the Sonic the Hedgehog show. So the adventures. So there were 2 Sonic the Hedgehog shows. One was Super Bobo, and then one was really good. So there's like the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is like slapstick comedy, like very Looney Tunes-esque. And then there was, I think it was just called Sonic. That was just called Sonic the Hedgehog, and that one had like. That had a 3-season arc, and it was like really dark. And as a child, I was very into it. So that, I think that would be my go-to. I was obsessed.
It got Batman.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeff?
So, Rich, as our resident nerd, I definitely watched way too many cartoons as a child. Everyone has talked about a cartoon that I have watched, or I did watch during Saturdays. With a big old bowl of cereal, and I was maybe 2 feet away from the screen. The X-Men cartoon, which we have not done on this show yet, we probably will be doing sometime soon. That show slaps. There were so many versions of the X-Men cartoon as well. There was like the Mutant X and all that fun stuff, but also I'm a Looney Tunes boy. Like I love the Looney Tunes so much. Rich, what about yourself?
Oh man, I realized the irony of me asking a question and then having to rethink my own answer over and over again. But I was like going back and forth between Doug and Angry Beavers and Cat Dog and Recess, and I think I still am gonna end up landing on SpongeBob. It was just like right at the moment where I was like starting to get over cartoons a little bit, and I still caught like the very beginning of it when it became like a cultural phenomenon, because that shit was everywhere. Still is. It's become like the basis of every single like meme format, basically. People still make SpongeBob references from like 25 years ago that are extremely relevant right now. It is. Yeah, it's a monoculture, and I just absolutely love that show so much. It's also
Big Sponge
was one of my favorite. Yeah, Big Sponge guy. I'm also very fond of the voice actor Tom Kenny and anything that he is in. Like after that, I'm watching everything. It made me fall in love with Mr. Show just because I could recognize that voice immediately.
I have to say something about this. I know this isn't a debate show, but can I debate this?
Yeah,
because I feel like
sure.
a lot of these answers weren't like mine were specifically on Saturday morning.
I was about to say the same thing.
But SpongeBob's a weeknight show.
Nicktoons are afternoon weeknight shows, and sometimes the Snick block. But like Nickelodeon early mornings, like that was just like kind of reruns. Whereas like for Saturday morning cartoons, I feel like you tune in every Saturday to see like a new. This is something you only get to see once a week on Saturday mornings.
So I reject your answer.
Like,
okay. Oh shit!
Your pilot is wrong.
Hey,
all right,
Rich,
should I change it to recess?
I hate to do this to you, but it's in the bylaws of the podcast. You're out, and Dan is now our third host.
Oh man,
Dan is one of the captains now.
This is the first time anyone's been wrong in the 45 episode history of this podcast.
I'm so happy you brought that up.
I'm making the first mistake.
That's amazing. Well, Rich,
no, it's all tunes are valid.
I'm so sorry.
No, challenge us.
Challenge Rich in particular. He needs to be brought down.
Yeah.
Well,
you just wait until I'm here. You're going down.
Oh my God. Well, Rich, thank you for that question of the week, and I am so sorry about your demotion. Before we dive into Sailor Moon, a quick word from our sponsors. Thanks to our sponsors. So let's dive into Sailor Moon, and we'll kick it off just with a really quick synopsis. The magical action adventure of a teenage girl who learns of her destiny as the legendary warrior Sailor Moon and must band together with the other Sailor Scouts to defend the Earth and galaxy. That is a lot to expect from a children's cartoon. But Max, I'm hoping you can clarify how this got made.
So today we are talking about the pilot for the anime Sailor Moon, a pilot so nice they named it twice, depending on if you watched it in Japan or the US. This episode, originally titled The Crybaby, Usagi's Beautiful Transformation, which premiered on March 7th, 1992, and in the United States as A Moonstar is Born on August 28th, 1995, is the child of an animator and writer by the name of Naoko Takeuchi. Takeuchi actually got her start as a licensed pharmacist with a degree in chemistry who on the side would write manga in her free time. Her first work, Love Call, earned her the New Artist Award from Nakayoshi Magazine, a monthly manga publication whose history dates back to 1954 in Japan. And off of that success, she starts developing the concept for an outer space action series with girl fighters and publishes the one-shot codenamed Sailor V. She gets approached by Toei Animation to bring Sailor V to series, and Takeuchi expands upon the concept, creating the series Sailor Moon, which begins its serialization in Nakayoshi in December of 1991, becoming an instant hit for the magazine. Originally, both the anime and manga of Sailor Moon were intended to be one season each with a 6-month run, but the immediate popularity of both led to Takeuchi writing additional seasons for both programs. Because both forms were basically being published simultaneously, the anime actually only lags behind the manga by like a month or two, so viewers are pretty much able to see adaptations in close to real time. Takeuchi has stated, though, that the anime has a slightly more male perspective due to Toei's largely male production staff. In 1995, a bidding war in the US breaks out to bring this concept stateside with two major players, and we are going to talk about both today. One would be to dub and broadcast the original series, and one would be to adapt the show into a live-action series in an attempt to capitalize the success of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. That long-lost pilot has been kind of like unofficially dubbed Saban Moon, although Saban Entertainment has nothing to do with the actual project itself. We will be talking about that a little bit later on. That proof of concept video, which never had a full pilot, never aired, was located at the Library of Congress. It was actually published to YouTube in 2022 and has taken on just a life of its own. That's going to be really fun. So stick around, listen to this whole episode. It's going to get weirder as we go, I promise. There are actually 2 ties in that live action concept short to previous episodes of TV Pilot's License as well. So we'll get into those a little bit later on. But for starters, I've got 4 words for all of you, and that's moon, prism, power, makeup. Let's go.
Let's go. What a summary. Well, is everyone ready to transform and talk about Sailor Moon a little bit more?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
I can't wait to talk about the transitions. Our previous guest, J.W. Crump, I watched him do a dissertation speech on anime transitions and starting with Sailor Moon, and it was just as beautiful to watch the first time. I've never seen this series at all before. Jeff and Max, have you seen any of this at all?
Oh my God, Rich, way to show your hand. Yes, I have seen too much of this.
I just mostly wanted to make you say it.
Oh yeah, because it tracks for those at home. They have a laundry list of how I'm a nerd. So let's start off with what only seems appropriate, this theme song. The theme song of this show is just a certified banger. Like, I don't care if it's in Japanese. I don't care if it's in English. It rocks.
The language of music is universal, baby.
It's just a good song. What did y'all think when you heard this? Did it bring back a sense of nostalgia? Were you just rocking out and forgot that you were supposed to be taking notes? I'd love to hear.
Oh man, a bop is a bop is a bop, baby. This is a bop. I love how vibrant the colors are in it too. I feel like I don't want to keep comparing this to our Gem episode, but it's like you get this like intro. It's like everything you need to know is going to be thrown at you in this trailer. You get ideas of characters. You see all these visuals, and like it sucks you in such a fun way. I was like, oh, I'm really excited to do everything from here on out. After this like 90 seconds, my skin cleared, my hair was thick and luscious. I was so happy after watching this intro.
Yeah, I mean, not to. You don't have to feel bad about comparing it to the Gem episode at all, Max, because like I feel like all shows of this era had to have a specific like architecture to it, so like, you know, to fit in enough commercials where it's not like overwhelming for kids or anything like that. I mean, the same way we'll get to like the transition cards, basically the you know, the small ad break cards and everything. You know, that was a big feature in Gem. That was a big feature in things like G.I. Joe. It's just like, you know, the starting off with like a really strong title sequence is how you captivate interest in the first place. So I don't think kids are ready for a cold open.
I mean, visually, I think it's very, you know, it's like, it is serotonin inducing. It's colorful. It's like girls like twirling around. The animation is higher quality in the opening theme. And then the song is super easy to sing to. Like both versions, like simple lyrics, like that basically explain the gist of the very like core gist of the show. In a key that's easy to sing. Like it's a perfect theme song and it's a perfect opening. It gives, because like for the majority of that first season, it's only like the first 3 Sailor Scouts anyway. Like you don't really get to the last 2 until like the last 10 episodes or whatever.
Have you guys at one time tried to learn the lyrics in Japanese?
I mean, I definitely did when I was younger.
Really?
Because I was such, yeah, I was a huge nerd. Huge
that
nerd.
Rules.
There may or may not be footage of me like singing an anime theme song at a 4-H talent show.
And we insert that
somebody
right
has
now.
I wish, buddy. I was a nerd with reckless abandon. I just didn't care. But yeah, I probably tried to learn it in Japanese and mispronounced, you know.
I mean, I think that's the thing with like anime theme songs. I don't know what they're doing over there, but they've got it so on lock with every show. Whereas like America, I can only think of like a couple like theme songs from American shows that come, but like Sailor Moon, like Pokemon, obviously, like just like everything. You go through like every anime, and it's always just like intense and serotonin inducing.
Yeah,
is exactly. They just know what we want.
They hook you in with a really solid jingle, like right at the beginning.
They have their version of that guy from Fountains of Wayne in Japan, who's just like in the studio, just cranking out theme songs all day long. He's the jingle
they literally
master.
have it down to. It's literally down to a science. The show was created by a chemist.
That's a great way to look at it.
So as we move forward, we meet our protagonist of this show, Usagi. And for those who grew up with this show in the 90s, you might be like, who is Jeff talking about? I don't know of an Usagi, but there were two different dubbings of this show. There's the one that you can find on Hulu today, and then there is the original American dubbing, where the character's name, I believe it was Serena.
What?
Yeah, in those episodes. So if you are confused as to who I'm talking about Sailor Moon, regardless, or our soon-to-be Sailor Moon.
Not
What?
Yeah, not yet, Jeff.
Not yet. We haven't been given a pendant by a cat. But at this point, we sort of see Usagi does not have much together, but what 14-year-old does, and what are our first impressions of this child that really just seems to have nothing going their way as a whole.
Just really captured the 14-year-old spirit of being a bitch to your mom when you wake up. That's like, that's so mean to her mom immediately. I'm like, almost no sympathy for this character right off the bat, but extremely relatable.
It's interesting that you say that because her mom is actually kind of a huge bitch right back. Like she locks her out of the house. Like, and then there's a line that's like, not again. But and I was just like, she's locked you out of the house before. Like, because she gets like a 30 on a test and her mom is like, you can't be inside. I can't look at you right now. And then her little brother is like 11. He's like, why are you so stupid? Like, why do I have to have such a stupid sister? The butt of the joke for the majority of the series, like, even though she has a super strong emotional arc, she still remains like academically an idiot, like all the way until the very end, which, you know, I love it. Commit to the bit. But like
we love a bad test queen. That's extremely relatable. That actually makes me want to watch more.
Yeah, they get that out of the way right away. Like in Japanese anime, it's a common trope where the first few seconds of the show is literally the main character saying, this is who I am, this is how old I am, and this is where I live, and they just like give you information about themselves. So like it starts with Usagi owning up to the fact that she's like uncoordinated, she's not smart, and she likes to eat a lot. Which that's another weird running joke in Sailor Moon is how like overweight she is, even though like what? Absolutely like not true.
No, that's actually interesting. I feel like in a lot of animes, the protagonist is really dumb, likes to eat a lot, and can be like Dragon Ball, One Piece. Like I feel like it's just interesting because Sailor Moon is a woman. It like makes it like, I don't know. It feels like there's almost like this like Legally Blonde thing going on where it's just like, she's like, oh, but then I guess she's not smart, but she's like, I'm powerful and I have, this secret and, you don't expect it from me, but.
You gotta make a relatable protagonist where there's like this inner power inside. I related so hard to the 1-2 punch of why does morning have to come so early, followed by it's not my fault if all the other kids always get to school on time.
I wrote that one down too. That was a beautiful line.
Yeah.
Usagi has a really good reason to be late to school though. There are children just beating a cat in the street, which is just like one of the most to introduce.
Wait, hold on. Is that what they were doing? I thought they were just putting the Band-Aids over it.
Throwing rocks and stuff at her. And
they were 100% beating, like doing animal abuse in the street.
Yeah, our inciting incident is animal abuse.
Good God.
Which is really like, we'll talk about wait a minute moments later, but that's just a big old one where it's just like,
damn.
Yeah, you know what I like to do as a child? Just if I see a cat, just throw a rock at
Yeah,
it. Like
future
there's
serial
no harm,
killer
no
mentality.
foul.
Well, I mean, I think there is a screenwriting book that, my point to this is
Yeah, it was talking the cat.
is a
That
good
might be
move.
Oh my god. So we do go through this of one. I think that as a student, and I think everyone here has been a student, you should be allowed to snack in class as long as you've brought enough snacks for everyone else. For Usagi's teacher to get upset with her about having a small meal during class is absurd. So I'm not sure where everyone's politics lie behind snacking, but I'm a big fan of it anywhere and everywhere.
I think
you
it's
need to be.
excessive if you need to use cutlery. Anything beyond that is okay.
I love this mentality though, because like she really has like kind of a Will Smith Fresh Prince era to her. And I'm like, this is the Fresh Prince for 14-year-old Japanese girls in the early 90s. And
Yeah.
In this
I love
essay,
it.
I will.
Exactly.
But we do get a little bit more context of what's happening, where there is a vigilante going by the name of Sailor V, who is out and
Yes.
about and potentially working with the secret police. We also get a weird instance where, if you're not familiar with anime, they use a lot of different small, consistent themes to convey emotion. So if you are not used to anime, if you saw a man with eyes that are constantly spinning, you might write a note, like myself, that says, "Why is homeboy's eyes constantly spinning while he's bragging about getting a 95 on his test?"
Yeah, I never really thought about I just always thought he was just like some nerdy, nervous boy, but I never really thought about the way his glasses are animated as it relates to his character.
those are glasses?
They're
assumed-
supposed to be.
I thought they were glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh,
believe
whoa.
they're supposed to be glasses.
I thought it was like big dumb goo goo eyes that like
No.
like-
Yeah, is there a
'cause,
secret meaning? Because
So-
sometimes, yeah, you're gonna tell us. Great.
Well, I'm not trying to out nerd you, Dan, but I will say that I believe in anime, and I know someone's gonna go in the comments and be like, Jeff got it wrong, but I believe that the crazy eyes are supposed to represent someone who's slightly flustered and might be confused. So very similar to, if you see my favorite one in anime is when you see the sigh, and it's almost like the mushroom cloud coming out of the mouth. That is something that I absolutely love. Or the way that you do eyebrows and the small animation above the head if someone's frustrated. So
The
I
big
believe
teardrop.
that's what this all falls under.
What a choice to give him consistent crazy eyes then, because that is
Yeah.
his basic design. It's not just a thing that puffs out every now and then. That is his permanent look. So what a
yeah, I
statement.
definitely thought that was state based.
Do you guys know what a nosebleed means?
Oh,
he's a
yeah,
fair
I think I do. But Dan, tell the audience.
Jets, yeah.
it means that they're horny.
Yeah, they have a boner.
Usually,
What?
nosebleed is when
Yeah.
male character is seen a panty shot of some other. They don't do it as much now, but in the 80s and 90s, every single every single
nosebleed?
anime that was made for
Yeah,
Could you
anytime in the
imagine-
anime, if they have an nosebleed, the animator's trying to convey their...
No, guys, I
Correct.
swear it's just allergies. I swear.
So just imagine you're a kid in the 90s and you have nosebleed issues, and then one of your friends is into anime.
Yeah.
There's definitely a small amount of confusion that might be happening there.
That friendship was never the same.
Pervert.
So one of the things that I feel like we haven't talked a lot about, but I really want to dive into, is just the animation
Yeah.
of Sailor Moon. Because we talked a bit in the beginning about hey, we grew up with these cartoon shows in the 90s and aren't they such a great part of our childhood? But the animation style for Sailor Moon just seems so distinct to me and so beautiful and almost adult that looking back now, I don't feel like I appreciated it enough as a kid that we were given that almost on a weekly basis of just this beautifully drawn art. What did you guys think about the animation as a whole?
Well, there's the element of like the kind of anime style from that era and you see this in Pokemon too, where there's just like a lot of repeating backgrounds, or it's very simplified animation and stuff like that. And I mean, I'm wondering if, to Max's like origin of the show, if it's like, if it needs to be on a more timely basis than the ones that we're used to in the US, because like, I don't know, if we're going back to SpongeBob again, which is famously not a Saturday morning cartoon, it was if we're talking about like the SpongeBob writing room and drawing board process, they're like, all right, look at this awesome episode, I hope you guys enjoy it, in 2003. But for these shows, it's kind of more like we have to keep following a specific timeline for it. Do these have to be timely? Is that the reason?
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely don't know. I just think it's beautiful. Like, I think you could cut out almost any of these single scenes, put it into a frame, and then I would be, as I think many people do, they take single cells of animation and put them in their home as art. And this is one of those shows that I feel like falls into that category.
I think there's just a little more warmth in the color palette on some of these like Japanese animated shows, whereas like American cartoons, be them Saturday morning or other, are almost like dialed up a little bit higher. It's like they're trying to get to a certain stimuli level, whereas like these ones have a little more like richness. You see more of like the brush stroke in there, and it's not quite that like turned up to 11, like overly bright American look that I think we're so accustomed to.
I think this all kind of loops into like the difference in aesthetics. I think relates to the way that the audiences of the respective countries consume content. I feel like in a lot of the anime that I saw, or that was available to me when I was younger, long form storytelling and story and world building was so key in the way that they created stories. Whereas in America, it's designed to sell toys. And you really you don't need a long attention span to get a kid to want a toy. You can get a kid to want a toy in 10 minutes.
We're going to talk about a show that tried that in 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And also because so much of the anime, because like they do complete it quickly so that to compensate for the fact that they have to make it so quickly, I feel like the character design is just that much richer. Like in the beginning, like in the pilot episode, they didn't do this for the Japanese version, but in the American version, they cut out some clips from later episodes to give you a basic idea of what you were in for. And you get to see Queen Serenity, which was Usagi's mother. And like, I remember her silhouette being very glamorous and womanly and very well animated in a way that you would never see in American cartoons. And like that aesthetic, I was just like, this is like stunning. I didn't think this is stunning when I was like 12, but like when I was 12, I was just like, she's so beautiful. Oh my God, I want to look like that. But like, and also the like the stock, I don't know if that's the right term.
Sure.
The animation that they recycled, the transformation sequences, those were always like way higher caliber animation, like very fluid motions, which you don't really get throughout an entire episode of an anime. Like a lot of it is kind of like that jerky motion that, they'll make fun of on like sketch comedy programs. Like, but those sequences were always so pretty that I didn't mind that they were recycled every time. I never fast forward through the transformation sequences. I was always there for them.
Yeah, the best part.
That's what gets the blood pumping.
As we move through, we sort of get our push into the episode of the girls are going to go shopping to celebrate basically Usagi's 30% on her test. Because what 14-year-old doesn't want a diamond ring, which is just something I have highlighted in my notes as a wild thing.
Sometimes you just need retail therapy to make things better. That's like universal.
So like, what better thing to get than grown up jewelry? I was talking about this with Duddy. Like the girls are obsessed with clothes and fashion and jewelry and just like very like visually stereotypical like girly things. Like all throughout the episodes, like to the very end. So it was just really funny to me that a jewelry store was like
for a 14-year-old
for a 14-year-old in the pilot episode. Like this was the first thing, like this was the first battle. Like it's basically like inside a Kay's jeweler. Like
it's Sailor Moon versus capitalism.
So
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's Naru's mom's store, too.
We do learn about Naru's mom being the jewelry store owner, which is just like, what a hookup. I feel like everyone knows a jeweler, and Usagi is no exception to this rule. But before we get to go to the jewelry store and get our shopping fix, we meet our villain of the show in what is just a terrifying scene of Queen Bara talking. At first, I'm gonna be honest, I thought the orb was all the voices until we saw the crowd of people just in the underworld with her. So in my notes, I say there's nothing more terrifying than an orb that has 1,000 voices coming from it.
That's what your TV is.
This is the original Amazon Alexa. Yeah.
Oh no.
No, she's an evil queen with a generic like magic ball. But their character design is just absolutely crazy. I don't remember, like, she sits on this throne of this skull with really long, sharp teeth.
That was cool.
And I don't really remember that. It's so cool. Like, the design of the villains
each one is
terrifying.
Absolutely horrifying. We're going to talk about another villain later, but this is sort of the exposition we needed as far as the first time in this podcast, or in this pilot, that we're hearing, hey, here's the purpose of the villain. She's going after all of this energy. What she needs the energy for, we'll hopefully learn a little bit more about soon, but there's this white guy who seems to have a solution for all of the energy needs, and he is not a lobbyist, but he's someone...
Historically, never a good idea. Historically, always bad.
He just comes in and...
It's so funny, too. That like what is energy? You're like, what is it like? Do they shouldn't they be at like a coal factory? Like, why are they like harvesting human souls? I don't think they know what energy. Duddy.
I really will say that Queen Beryl walks so Colin Robinson could run in What We Do in the Shadows. She's really the first instance of an energy vampire, and I love that.
Yeah. I love that.
So
that
we get to our jewelry store and we learn how the villain is going to get this energy through the guise of a gigantic jewelry sale, where it seems like everybody from town is at this jewelry store all at once, getting as much jewelry as they can purchase. But we then come to find out this jewelry is stealing their energy for the Dark Lord.
It's
what
blood
I will
diamonds.
say is, when originally we saw Naru come in and be like, oh yeah, my mom's the owner of the jewelry store, I thought Naru was in on the whole, like, oh yeah, we're gonna steal everyone's energy and like, let's put on all the jewelry possible. Did anyone else get that
really?
like get that
It's
feeling, or am I
Scooby-Doo.
just an idiot?
No.
I think it would have been a cool twist. It would have been like a really interesting like choice for a human character to be like, yeah, I'm gonna side with the monsters, but I have more complex story.
Man, Usagi's teenage life is tough enough. I can't have her best friend also turn on her. Everyone in this world is getting their life sucked out of them from jewelry while smooth jazz is playing. I mean, this world is tough enough to live in.
Yeah.
I also wrote down in the notes swanky
The
jazz
soundtrack
number.
is hilarious.
Usagi realizes she can't afford this diamond ring, as she then gets mobbed by a group of people who now want the diamond ring that was discounted at a wild discount. It was like 1/6 of the original price, I think, is what ended up happening.
Yeah.
And then gets made fun of by someone who then calls her Bunhead. So I watched this episode with my partner, and she said, oh, I'm so upset because originally in the other dub they called her Meatball Head. So I now asked the rest of the crew, what other terrible nicknames would you like to give Usagi since Bunhead and Meatball Head have been chosen. Max, I'm starting with you.
Oh, don't make me terrorize a 14-year-old girl. I don't know. I'm gonna
Not again.
That's a smart.
How does
stance
it keep
to
coming
take
up on
back.
this podcast?
I'm gonna call her Ooh Snacky because she keeps eating in class.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I got her ass.
Rich, what about you?
Why would she go? Why would he go with Bunhead when it's clearly like 9-foot ponytails? Like it's not a bun. Am I really just going to be the only one commenting on this?
Well, he's like, well, you also like, it's not just like hair buns. Like they like have street buns, like really popular street, like bow and stuff like that over there. So it is kind of like he's calling her hair food. It's just not like Meatball. Like that brings a certain like visage of like lumpy like meat. That
It's a little
when you
gross.
had once you had to like
that's a
that
gross
was,
nickname.
I don't know. It's gross. Yeah, but like a bun, like you just like get them from like the 7-Eleven and they're like nice and round and they're filled with like just a tiny bit of like savory snack. Like
Sounds delicious.
I'm trying to calculate what this person's allowance would be that she could afford a 30,000 yen.
Oh, I didn't realize we were dealing with yen when I watched this, and I was like, $30,000. That's still so much. I did the conversion. It's like $211 in today's money, which when you account for inflation,
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. That's a shitload of money. After proceeding to get bullied by this random man, we then get back to the house where she gets made fun of by her brother. Then she gets kicked out of her house for getting a poor test score. And then we meet one of our other main characters, a cat by the name of Luna. This is the cat that, yes, we had before. In my notes, I just said, wait a minute, does this cat have thumbs? How did the cat open the window? This is a major plot hole. Unless, Rich, you have cats. How do cats open windows?
Yeah. They're just tricky, man. They can just do whatever they want. They don't need thumbs. They're just moving shit out of the way. They're performing magic every day.
We proceed to learn that because Luna had the Band-Aid on her head, she wasn't able to speak, which is so disappointing because the only thing I want to do is put Luna in a cute little sailor's outfit, and just knowing that she couldn't speak with a hat on is really upsetting to me as a whole.
No, as long as the hat doesn't cover the symbol, you won't dull Luna's sensory powers. Just make sure the hat's kind of sitting back on the head.
also like they bring this up once and then it is never mentioned again that like Luna's powers are limited if you cover up the bald spot on her head. That is for the pilot only.
I did want to ask too, for everyone who has seen more than one of these, because I noticed in the live action one, they also mentioned Queen Beryl. Is Queen Beryl is that like the antagonist? Is that
She's
the person who is just like
season
constantly?
1. Yeah.
Okay.
So she's
Okay.
the enemy for about like 65 to 67 episodes, depending on which
God
version you
damn,
watch.
that's a lot of episodes.
Luna brings the gift that Usagi was hoping for when she gets that kick-ass pendant. Once again, Rich, I know that cats bring mice and birds. I'd like to meet the cat that brings gifts of jewelry and have that in my life.
Yeah, I normally have to clean up the gifts that my cat leaves me.
So, Max, just remind us, what is that catchphrase that we hear and get the kick-ass animation?
One time for the people in the back. Mood, prism, power, makeup.
Also, Prism. Why Prism? Do we get that?
I don't know. Colors.
Jas, when you see this transformation, are you getting just as hyped as the intro song, or is it a different type of emotion?
I got especially hyped. I'm like, this is a hot take right here. I think that the Deke dub transformation music is so much better than the original Japanese music.
Oh, interesting.
I think so. It's like more orchestral. It's like a little bit more musically rich, whereas like in the music in the Japanese version, it definitely has that like action appeal. It's kind of like 70s like A-Team, like like we're gonna go beat the bad guy music.
Like it's made on a keytar.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Like it's tougher. I think it's more like I think it appeals more to like boys and girls, that music does. Whereas I feel like the music in the Zeke version was just like a little bit more feminine.
I'm just singing the words Sailor Moon to the A-Team theme now, like Sailor Moon, Sailor Moon,
Yeah.
Sailor
And
Moon.
they sing and they do that too in the Japanese version. It's really funny. But yeah, no, those transformation sequences were super hype. Every single girl that loved that show, little boys too, like they were doing those transformation moves in their room. Like,
What do you... So a question for each of you. If you were to receive a magical pendant and then a talking cat tells you to say a few words as you're adorning this pendant, and then you transform, what is the appropriate reaction to that sequence of events? Because I thought Usagi was very appropriately freaking out, and the cat said, "Not now, we don't have time, we gotta go."
Yeah, she's not emotionally prepared for anything in this entire episode.
not at all.
Well, I think it's interesting too because the cat doesn't really give her much context about like what this transformation means and like what powers she might have, or like she's kind of like, we have to go. And are you a crime fighter? I don't know. You know, like I'm just taller now. I'm just slightly taller. I think like did her tits get bigger? Like how does that translate to like fighting crime necessarily without like a backstory? You like tell her about the tiara thing before going out.
Yeah, everything was in the moment. Like, do this right now. No explanation is going to be given. Just follow orders.
Yeah, going off of Dan's point, the first one, not the second one, is that for a show that has so much exposition, the one time where we need a character to actually have explained to them what is going on, the cat's just like, time to go, your friend's in danger, you gotta go do a thing now, with no primer.
Well, obviously on the way to the jewelry store, the cat primed Sailor Moon on one thing, and that is her kick-ass catchphrase, which even the villain or the faux jewelry shop owner was like, wait, you have a catchphrase? Which is just the greatest call out in the world. And I was so ready. I was so in that moment, and like, that's just good writing. That's just really...
Can I just say that monster scared me with like the claws like choking the little girl. Then when the head turns all the way around to face Sailor Moon backwards, like this is a kid show. That's really freaky. I'm not the only one who was a little scared, right? Am I the only one who hid under a blanket a little bit?
Yeah, it was
You got a little bit of like Junji Ito influence there. It's just like, it's very like, oh, I'm gonna have like some drippy, creepy like tree monster thing that we're gonna throw in here after everything else has been absolutely adorable the entire time.
And then also to have the people that we assumed were potentially dead rise up in this zombie-like state, being led by like, so. Throughout this entire jewelry store, there's one character that sort of sticks out from the rest, and it's this one heavy-set woman with what might be... Dan already has talked about tits. She has some large tits.
Well, welcome to day, like, what, 3 of the SAG strike? It's time to talk about big ol' anime titties.
But I will not lie, when that... Like, we see all of the other people rise up, and then that woman rises up last, and I lost it for, like, a few seconds. I was just crying from laughter.
I do want to mention, too,
no dialogue, she's pretty prolific.
And Dan, you actually made a very relevant cultural point, because in the song 1 Week by the Bare Naked Ladies, there is a line there, he goes, "Boom anime babes," and it is a reference to him having a crush on Sailor Moon in the transition sequences, and that inspired a line from that song.
Well, good. No, because I was. Wait, I want to talk about this though, because I feel like you guys are passing judgment on me. But she becomes
no,
a
we're
woman.
certainly not.
That's the transformation, right?
You see the silhouette of her naked body. I want to like make it clear. There's like no vag, no nips, like none of that. It's just a silhouette.
This is a children's
But
show.
it's clear that
This is a children's show. I do want to.
18, right?
no, she was just wearing more form-fitting clothing. It's just it's like 14, but she's like it's like the 90s. It's the 90s. It's anime. Like you just gotta roll with it.
Oh my god.
I think it's a metaphor, at least, for she's.
You're so right.
She's gonna grow into the woman that she like has been gifted with becoming.
Right.
Oh my god.
Her brain will catch up.
So
It's terrible. It does. By the end of the season, by the end of the series, it does.
Oh man, I hope all our episodes during the strike are this loose.
So Sailor Moon does seem almost like down for the count at one point, overwhelmed. The clumsiness that we talked about from Usagi is starting to show. But then, in a moment where even I stopped breathing, I saw a rose fly down with so much speed that it was stuck in the ground. And we see our male hero of Tuxedo Mask. And yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Like, this guy's charming as hell with his fancy dialogue. And I was even like, oh yeah, he's giving her what she needs to remember she can be the hero in this moment in time.
Duddy, what did you ask me while we were watching this?
I was like, so he doesn't do anything? He just shows up. You think he's like, all right, let's go. Time to kick some ass. And he just shows up.
It's the Twitter meme. It's the Twitter meme.
Literally.
No, he's her hype boy.
Yeah.
Like that's his role. Like he doesn't have any real special powers. They kind of like half-ass some for him later down the road, but like not really. He doesn't even get a transformation sequence except like one time. But like all he's there to be like, you can do it, and he'll distract the enemies. And that's his big power. It's a distraction with that rose.
I mean, I was distracted, so I get it. Like,
what a fucking cop out superpower. I can absolutely be the superhero whose power is distraction. That sounds great.
Wait, for folks in LA, you might see a new vigilante calling himself Distracto Man, who looks a lot like Rich. It's not him, I swear. He's recording the podcast.
The best superpower a man could have is supporting women. He's a wife guy ally for all.
Can we all just take a quick like 2-minute applause break?
Wow.
Yeah, bravo.
So we do end up saving, in this instance, Naru. We defeat the villain who goes down in a entire thing of dust. And then
she turns into sparkles.
And then we see Queen Beryl.
Yeah.
And the mysterious man who said he could solve all of her energy needs, looking disappointed at the same time. Before we end the first pilot that we're going to talk about in this two-parter, any additional thoughts on this pilot?
I just remember I rewatched it with Duddy today, and I was just like, I understand how as a child I got roped in, because when you're a kid, you don't need as much as an adult. You're like, good guy, bad guy, hero, princess, done, great. And then the aesthetic appeal was like that cherry on top that like could hook me for at least like 10 more episodes, and then the story gets more complex as you go. But like rewatching it now, I was like, and not much really. I mean, a lot happens, but also not that much happens. This wasn't like a very exciting pilot. Like, so like watching it through the filter of like an older person.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. Like, because I recently really exposing how much nerd I am. I rewatched Dragon Ball Z actually for the first time in a long time, and like what's nice about Sailor Moon is it's at least like a full episode. You know, you have your start to the story, you have your middle of the story, you have the bad guys defeated, you know, next one. And I don't know, I feel like so many of the things that come up on later, they like set up in this pilot. Like, you have Tuxedo Mask, you have Queen Beryl, you have her like weird like Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy-esque underground organization of like mysterious figures. You have like the jewelry theme, right? It starts with the diamonds, and like that's something that, you know, it's beams. It's all about that jewelry, you know, or back the crystal, the silver crystal. It's all sorts of cool stuff. She beats the bad guy. I don't know. I thought it was like really well. I was like surprised at how well done it was in comparison to like how like his poor Dragon Ball Z's pilot was.
God, Dragon Ball Z was so bad.
So we normally, when we end one pilot, which is normally what we do for an episode, we talk about things that we loved. And then we also talk about wait a minute moments. I'm going to say we talk about wait a minute moments when we talk about our next pilot that we're going to be talking about.
Love this direction for us.
But Rich, Max, were there any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we didn't discuss?
Oh, yeah. Her having a breakdown at the slightest bit of learning about her new powers was extremely relatable. That's precisely how I would react. There's no moment where she's instantly mentally a superhero. That's the best. I love that. No, she's going to fucking cry, and then she's going to have someone come save her ass for a little bit, and then eventually she'll figure out how to be a little bit more brave. For the first time expectation is so unrealistic. I know we're talking about a children's cartoon, but yeah, it is extremely relatable.
It takes her a
that she
long
just
time
crumbled.
to get that together too. Like that, and that's not something that's like instantly solved in like 2 or 3 episodes. Like
That's good.
It takes 200 episodes to like fully suss out her growth. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah,
That's just life, baby.
baby.
That's character development.
Max, what about you?
I love the number of catchphrases that if I were a kid, I would want to just shout back at my TV, shout with my friends. We didn't even mention Moon Tiara action, which she deals her death blow to the monster in this episode. I also we didn't really talk about the button, but I appreciate that it kind of comes full circle with this like as a true narrative pilot where it's like she's got her powers going, she's defeated the bad guy, but then we see her again as Usagi, and she's like sleeping with her head in her desk in class, and she's back to being, you know, her kind of struggling, life is tough 14-year-old self. And so it shows that balance in that character. There's these different levels to her. There's this, you know, real girl life, and there's the superhero life. And so I think it's like actually a nice moment to end on where it's her being normal and back to where she was again.
Yeah, the real villain is time management. It still is.
The real
Extremely
villain
relatable
is
show.
ADHD.
So let's dive into wait a minute moments. So for folks who are listening to this episode, so we chose to not only watch one pilot, we watched 2 pilots for this episode because there is an American version of this pilot that was hidden away in the Library of Congress and the National Archives, and we found it and we watched it. It is only 10 minutes long. If you want to watch, I'll have the link in the description of this episode on Spotify and on YouTube. Who would like to begin with this fever dream?
Jasper, you brought this to our attention. You got to kick it off.
Listen. So, yes. So, okay. No, basically to capitalize on the success of Sailor Moon, they wanted to try to bring it over to the United States. And when they were debating whether or not to just like dub over the Japanese version or create a new version, they were like, let's just create a new version, like just to see. So they created this pilot, which was a live action animation hybrid. It's 10 minutes long. Like the actors aren't even credited. Like it is literally like, no, it's not. They had to like track down.
So you say they're not credited,
like,
but on their IMDb's, each of these actors have put that they are in the Sailor Moon pile.
I'm sure they have now. But like this dude Raymona who uploaded this pilot, like he had to like track them down And I think they added it to their IMDb's once they realized like what a like weird, like quiet internet phenomenon it was becoming. But like the animation was so terrible. Like think of just like the happiest, only made to sell toys animation you can think of. It looks like it's in Saturday Night Live parody.
It really does.
Of an American toy cartoon. The like you think an anime, the faces aren't moving? Like watch this. It's so bad. Their boobs are all lopsided and they're like weird and like it's and like you can tell like the character designers wanted to make them like a little bit more muscular, and then somebody was like, no, don't do that, but they had already done some of it. They're really grabbing for diversity, which I love. We love that, but like it's in a really like 90s kind of way where it's like we did this because we had to.
We have a redhead who's also in a wheelchair, the most diverse person that we could have.
And kudos to them for keeping her in some kind of like wheelchair-like device when she transforms.
Wait.
Because when first watched this, I thought they were going to have her transform and suddenly she was going to be able to like walk again.
Was prepared.
That was not the case.
I was fully prepared for her to just start walking again and being like, okay, like this is really... Because at first, I didn't notice in the montage that they had her in a wheelchair, and then it just appears in one instance, and I'm like, wait a minute, did they steal someone's wheelchair? Why are they so prominently featuring a wheelchair?
Watching this thing on YouTube, it's basically the crudest animated planetarium video you've ever seen. It's a giant exposition dump, which then leads to a character saying, there's no time to explain when they finally get to the actual plot.
So, but they do try to explain everything in one of the largest exposition dumps that has ever... Like, the first 2 minutes of a 10-minute pilot is just a narrator yelling at us about everything that we need to know. Because this is while Sailor Moon...
Nothing left to the imagination.
Yeah, while Sailor Moon, the original, felt like an actual cartoon that was meant for children, this felt like a 10-minute long advertisement for toys. And it just, everything about it was a toy. Like the spaceship that the prince was in, that's a toy. The kites that they were flying, that's a toy. Like everything was a toy.
It's trying to sell you San Francisco Giants and Orlando Magic jerseys. It's
which is better formal wear, I have to ask, because that's what they were preparing for the school dance.
The white is smashing and the black is sophisticated.
The like just a complete and utter redesign of literally everything was offensive to me. Luna's design, but like she's this like they made her like this white Persian cat. Like that looked like what you guys have seen the Aristocats, the Disney movie. Love that movie. But like the little like white cat, the Percy one, like bigger. That was Luna in this pilot. Luna didn't say shit in this pilot either. She was just like her eyes glowed, and I guess because they focus on her when Sailor Moon's mother's like, I'm gonna send you to Earth and I'm gonna find a way to communicate with you. And then Luna's eyes just light up and she hops on this like windsurfer.
Almost dies, like within the first 5 minutes.
Almost died. Darien does die in the first 5 minutes, and there's no emotional moment for that. It's just like, there's not even a sound effect for the explosion. Like, he's just dead, and then they're just like, oop, we're going to go through the wormhole. Bye.
When live-action Luna tried to get the girls to focus by stopping the tape deck with their paw, I cackled.
But also, to be fair, there is no sound in space and no one can hear you scream. So that is science right there.
Would love to believe that was on the agenda. that was like a piece of information that was on the table. I don't believe it. I think
what I sound really weird in the live action parts is how hard this is trying to cop the popularity of like the 80s John Hughes films. Because they make a reference to Pretty in Pink, and then they also do the exact shot of the feet dancing sequence from Breakfast Club, and it's like it's trying to be Japanese anime, but it's also trying to be like Blossom and Saved by the Bell and Boy Meets World. It's just all over the place,
and like
too many things.
We talk about the like the transformation in the animation. The transformation in this is to go from live action to animation, which is bonkers. But also, some of the lines that they say during that fight scene are genuinely offensive. Like when they say that one of the villains is too out of shape to dance, that's just rude. Anyone can dance. Like this was one of those things where I was like, this was supposed to be for children, and we're teaching them, you know, what you should do when you're beating the shit out of someone. Also, verbally abuse them at the same time.
Yeah. I felt like this episode, honestly, was written by, like, AI. Like, I can't believe that a human being wrote this. Some of the lines that they say, like, they don't make any sense. I'm just like, what is this even doing here? What is this contributing to the story? Also, semi-unrelated, sorry, I'm jumping all over the place. Why do they already know that they're Sailor Scouts? When they're on Earth, like, nope, there's no discovery. They're just like, yeah, that's who we really are. Like, what? I get that you only have 10 minutes. Maybe if you didn't spend 5 minutes explaining
I guess
the
because it's just
entire
proof
arc.
of concept. It's just a pilot presentation. But yeah, it's like there's no explanation as to how they know what their skills are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And who knew, if you find a vortex and you go through it, you become animated. So good to know for the future. Holy shit. That is one of the most bonkers things that I've ever watched. So thank you, too, for bringing that to our attentions.
Yeah, of course.
And man, to quote a line that I had up top, a bop is a bop is a bop. And I do love, she's got a life in the sky and another sheep on earth. Her talking cat Luna gives her advice.
Oh my God. So bad. It's so bad.
So we do have one more question. And it is our in-flight question. In-flight questions come to us from our listeners, either via voicemail or DM. And I got one that I really loved, and it was, if you could have an accessory that also worked as a magic drone for fighting purposes, what would it be? So think of the tiara that we see Sailor Moon throw. What in that sort of capacity would you like to have that maybe you're wearing right now? Or maybe you wish you had on your person?
I would love a big wallet chain, like attached to some Jenko jeans. That's just like, this is how I'm saving the universe.
Oh my God.
I'm just like a little bit of detachment, and I'll never losing your wallet is automatically a superpower. I don't need anything beyond that. But two, if I'm fighting crime.
Max, what about you?
Oh my God.
I want like a magical belt that like I can transform into other objects. Like I want something that's like one part Wonder Woman lasso, one part like magical transforming device. Like whatever I need, I can turn that belt into. And also the belt talks.
You want a talking belt?
Dan, what about you?
Well, I'm caught because at first I was thinking, oh, like hat, obviously, but because but I feel like now is that too much like the tiara, you know? So I'm thinking about
Have a tiara if you want it.
yeah, no, but I don't want to be like I don't want to copying anyone, you know? I want to be unique. And I thought about it like maybe I just sell out entirely. Maybe I just go the sneaker route and I just make them branded like Air Jordan, but they're just like Air Moon, you know?
Ooh.
And I just sell them to kids for super great prices.
Your superpower is product scarcity.
Is consumerism? Oh my god. What I would say for myself, since I've had some time with this, I think a watch can already be almost like a fighting accessory, because if you ever have the sun go into your
Blinding
watch
strangers.
and then you have that light that goes around on the wall and then you blind your partner for fun to see if they'll notice, I think I already have a fighting accessory, so I'm doing great already.
And finally, Jasper, your super accessory.
My super accessory. I'm gonna expand a little bit. I think it would be cool to like get some kind of tattoo or like mark. Like, because I like the idea of it just intrinsically being in me, like the power. Like, I love a good chosen one narrative.
What does the tattoo
so,
do
like,
then?
I feel like it like helps. The tattoo is like what like lets you transform, or like, you know, like a Care Bear, how the power will like burst out of the picture.
Oh, but maybe you're like,
Yeah,
you know, it's something
yeah.
covers it up. You lose your sense of, I don't know, your sense.
What was it? She was like, I can't talk. I can't talk anymore.
Oh my God.
It dulls my senses.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for that in-flight question. We'll talk a little bit more about submitting those at the end of the episode. Let's talk a little bit about the history of this show. There were 5 seasons of the show, 200 episodes, and 3 TV specials. There were also 3 movies that would be shown during the season of the show that have to do with the context of that episode, specifically meant for winter break in Japan, so that students would go see a Sailor Moon episode and be able to keep up with one of their favorite shows. It absolutely awesome. This show debuted in North America, first in Canada to our neighbors up north, and then on September 11th of 1995,
it's
which is the only reason.
You don't have to say it like that.
It's the only thing that has ever happened on September 11th. Was this show debuted? So what ended up happening was it only lasted on air for 2 months before they took it off air because they said terrible ratings. But then, in another moment of consumerism, General Mills, the cereal company, came in and said, what if we sponsored Sailor Moon? Because there was a fan petition that had thousands upon thousands of signatures asking for the show to
That's
come
when they made Sailor Heart, Sailor Stars, Sailor Horseshoes, Sailor Clover, Sailor Blue Moons.
Oh my God. So this show has traveled around a ton of networks. It would be an entirely different podcast if I listed all of them. But if you are looking for it today, you can find it on Hulu. I do want to credit Takanori Arasawa. He's the only person that is associated with this show to win awards because of this show. Columbia Records actually gave him the Golden Desk Award because of how popular one of the songs he wrote for this show was in just the general public. And like, if we think about 1995, like there's no like, oh yeah, everyone was downloading it on DVD, on like Apple Music or anything like that, or listening on Spotify. This was very much just like, I like that song and am going to find a CD that has that song, or find a radio cassette tape that has this song. You can find the entire series on DVD if you are curious, but I would just say if you want to see the dubbed version or the subtitle version, you can go on. Or if you want to watch this crazy batshit pilot that we talked about, you can go on YouTube. There's actually an amazing documentary that was made on the making of that will also link in our video, because it is bonkers banana
and
pants.
Whoever is the person who is currently logged into my Hulu watching all 250 episodes of Sailor Moon, I do see that, and I don't know who you are, but that is really happening, and please stop.
Oh my God. But that's the history of this show. And as our flight comes to a land, I have 2 questions for each of you that I'd love to hear your answers for. One, based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, would you continue watching Sailor Moon? And 2, if there was a studio that didn't have any ideas, do you think this show could be remade today? And or do you think the show should be remade today?
It is being remade.
Is it really?
Oh, then Jasper.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah,
Cool.
Crystal.
So Jasper, I guess I'll ask you, based off of rewatching this pilot and just thinking about this pilot, would you rewatch Sailor Moon?
Absolutely. I'm actually doing a rewatch right now.
On my Hulu account.
But yeah, based on the, I mean, listen, it might be me. I'm about halfway through right now. No, I would definitely like the pilot has like it has a cohesive story. It has like a really great character design. You know, even with what I said about it, like watching it through an adult lens, like I would watch at least 3 or 4 more episodes for sure.
Dan, what about you?
Yes and yes. What I loved about it was too, like all the things you already said, but it was such a nostalgic trip, you know. It took me to a place that I don't normally think about, like when I'm like thinking about the cartoons that shaped my childhood. But there definitely was a lot of Sailor Moon there. I think maybe there's like some like pseudo, you know, masculine, like that I kind of like blocked that out. But I was like, oh yeah, like no, Sailor Moon, absolute banger. And it was just when we were watching and she started to transform, I was like, let's go. Like I felt it inside, you know? So yeah, absolutely. I want to start watching.
Max, what about you?
Yeah, I was honestly really surprised with how like linear the storytelling was in this, like how much of a true beginning, middle, and end this episode had. I feel like there's stuff that if you watch it as an adult about like teenage coming of age and like, you know, the troubles that you deal with at that time in your life that you wouldn't get as like a young audience viewer. So yeah, honestly, for me, this is surprising yes to keep going. I also realized I forgot to mention our 2 connections to previous shows. Like I said I was going to, we did the live action pilot. So for keen listeners, Patricia Alice Albrecht, who was the narrator in the live action pilot, voiced Pizzazz, the lead singer of the Misfits and Gem.
What?
And Adrian,
wow.
And Adrienne Barbeau, who played Queen Serenity, she was the voice of Catwoman in Batman the Animated Series.
And she was the original Rizzo on Broadway.
In Grease. She also
Yeah.
starred in Maude. She's a legend. But yes, I would absolutely keep watching the show. And if you're still listening for those fun facts, good on you.
Rich, what about you?
Oh my gosh.
I would definitely keep watching simply because Sailor Moon as a character, or Usagi as a character, is not ready to accept her powers at all. And I think that adds like such a wide like way for you to take the series. And I think the problem with a lot of unexpected person like developing superpowers is like they're ready to go first episode, and then it just becomes about like the villains each time, like the relationship with the villains. And now you get to experience like what it's like having to come to terms with having a, you know, a power that's beyond like any of your peers or anything like that, something that's going to like change your life. And I think that is like an extremely relatable and exciting way to take the narrative. And I'm super stoked to see where that goes.
Yeah, and I think it's going to surprise literally 0 people that I would absolutely consider rewatching or watching this entire series. This is definitely going into my rotation as a whole. I cannot wait to watch the 2nd episode and see how far I get before my wife tells me I have to pick a new hobby. But as far as the rebooting of the show, I am so hopeful, right? There's so much material for a studio to work with, and I hope they do the original justice, and I hope that they also are willing to dive into potentially some new stories and some new dimensions. With that being said, Rich, before we sign off, it is time for Rich's Game of the Week.
I have a super, super quick Game of the Week for all of you, and I couldn't think of any game that was specific to Sailor Moon, so I have some trivia questions on sailing and moons. So
Oh my god.
I have one for each of you. I'll keep it super quick. First one goes to Max. Max, the word yacht comes from a Dutch word meaning A, seeker, B, replace, C, hunter, or D, boat.
I'm going to say C, Hunter.
Yeah, you got it. All right. Jeff, the largest moons of Jupiter were discovered by what famous astronomer? A, Edwin Hubble, B, Galileo, C, Johannes Kepler, D, Edmund Halley.
Well, I know who Galileo is, so that sounds about right.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah, let's go.
Jess, a sailor in 1996 was the first person to use what to cross an ocean? A, solar power, B, a self-propelled engine, C, human waste combustion, D, a boat entirely made out of recycled materials.
I want to maybe D.
It is A, solar power.
Oh,
Ooh, interesting.
also,
A Japanese sailor crossed the Pacific Ocean entirely only on solar power.
Rich, thank you so much for that question of the week. Our plane is coming to a land. With that being said, I want to make sure folks who have stuck with us throughout this entire flight with its bumps as well as solar system sightings are able to find you folks. So with that said, Dan and Jasper, first of all, thank you both so much for joining our podcast. I think Rich, Max, and myself can only say how appreciative we are of that. But where can folks find you if they're looking for you?
you can find me across all platforms at Hey Jasper Lewis, all one word. And yeah, check me out on Instagram or TikTok, one of those places.
And you could find me on the Bachelor Zone podcast. That's at Bachelor Zone Pod. I think I never help at all with the Instagram, so I hope that's right. I hope Wally and Zach don't listen this far and find out I don't know our Instagram handle. But you can also find me on Instagram and Threads, I guess, at not real, that's the old one, at Dan_Duddy_very_professional. And then a final reminder, if you want to see more of me and Jas, check out our show at the Elysian.
Come see Rabble Rabble August 18th at the Elysian Theater.
And we will make sure to have the link for any ticket purchases within our Spotify description as well as YouTube. Rich, where can folks find you?
You can find me continuously trying to get my cat to speak, and also on Instagram at Damn That's Rich.
Max?
You could catch me logging out of Rich's Hulu to go see Dan and Jas at the Elysian Theater on the 18th. You can find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
And you can find me trying to get a really good deal on a diamond ring that I really don't need, nor can I afford. But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at RunJeffRun on Instagram and Twitter. If you're looking for the TV pilot's license, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and anywhere you listen to podcasts at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, maybe you have a suggestion for a new show that we should be watching, give us a call at 213-290-1713 or shoot us a DM on Instagram, as we are always open to suggestions. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again. And until then, Moon Tierra, action.